Ready, Laura?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the special meeting of the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Englewood Cliffs. Today is August 17th, 2022. It's approximately 7:03 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. I'm calling the meeting to order virtually via the Zoom application. Everyone in the public will have an opportunity to be heard. Madam Clerk, would you please read into the record the statement of compliance?
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Law, PL 1975, Chapter 231, setting forth the date, time, and place and purpose of this public meeting through a legal notice published in the record and posted on the Borough website and on the bulletin board.
Thank you. Have a roll call, please.
Mayor Kranjak,
Here.
Member Di Gregorio,
Here.
Member Luciano, Member Park,
Yes.
Member Begats,
Yes.
Member Kapsaskis,
Yes.
Council President Katrubis,
Present.
and I have Attorney Mensch is not present, but Mike Collins is in.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's have the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Just by way of COVID update, which I do at every meeting, we've had 4 positive cases this week. So we are really trending considerably down from where we were, and that's all good news. So happy to report that after what's been a long pandemic. Next on our agenda is public comment, and this is a special meeting. It's focused on renovating and improving the 2 parks in town. We tried to do this in 2017. We got to the point where we actually had the plan approved then. We were able to get the bonding ordinance passed because of some recalcitrant board council members who would not approve that. If you look at this plan versus that plan, first of all, that plan would have been done by now, of course. Although it wasn't as developed as this plan is, it would have cost about 1/3 less. But with inflation, our new president, it costs what it costs. And my most important point here is that I want to deliver to the residents and their children in this town proper open spaces and parks. We've been at an extreme disadvantage to our peer communities who have facilities for athletics and recreation that are far better than ours. And given what our taxpayers have to pay in taxes, we wanted to return something back to them. They deserve, our residents deserve, our neighbors deserve proper recreation facilities. And in the context of athletics, which is only a part of this, but it's a big part of this, in terms of athletics, the peers of our children get much more playing time and practice time at an earlier time, which means that when they get to high school, they are much more competitive than our students. Now, I had 3 children. I'm happy to say that they played in town. They played varsity sports in high school, and 2 went on to play collegiate athletics. So I think it's important for the development of children as well that we have proper facilities. For people who want to have proper recreation and who may not be into sports, the plan as outlined, and Andy Hippolyte, our engineer, will speak to this more before we open to the public. There are opportunities there to enjoy open space. There's a pavilion in the drawing. You could have performances and other non-athletic events. So, I've been told by a lot of people, don't support this, it costs a lot of money. Look, everything costs a lot of money. It's time for once and for all that our taxpayers actually get something for their money. You spent 3 years paying people like Al Wunsch and the other lawyers on the affordable housing case who blew this town up. And I'm not willing to stand by and watch that happen without at least you, the residents, getting something back. And we had a committee formed. I thank the committee members for all their hard work. It was made up of council members, Katrubis. I'm not sure if Kapsaskis was on it or not, but he did attend some meetings. Coaches, Billy Theodokris, Russ Perino, who was our planning board chairman. They basically took the 2017 plan and improved it, I would say, considerably. And that is the plan that we are presenting tonight for approval and for a financial package to pay for it. So without further ado, I see Andy Hippolyte there, and I thank him for all and his team for his work. I don't want this to be a political issue. I just want this to be an issue that benefits our residents. So I am going to step back. I've told you I support it, and I will have Andy speak to it, and Mr. Perino as well. I'm not sure which one of you wanted to kick it off, or if Mr. Katrubis wants to kick it off. It's really up to you guys.
Mayor, I'd be happy. This is Russ Perino. I'd be happy to do a quick introduction and then pass it on to Andy. Maybe some comments from other members of the committee as well, too, if possible. Andy, is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, Mayor?
Yeah, no, go right ahead.
Okay.
And I think Ms. Borchers is in a position to actually share the rendering if you wish to speak to it. So that's available.
Sure. If you wanted to put up the color rendering, I guess it wouldn't be a bad idea, Laura. And Andy's going to walk through with he's got a slide presentation that he will make. I just wanted to introduce basically the committee members and Mr. Hippolyte and make a short comment, and then I'll turn it over to Andy from there. Okay. If you could bring up that the color rendering, that would be fine. So first, I'd like to thank the members of the committee. Thank you. Along with myself, volunteered their time in bringing these improvements to the recreational facilities within the borough. Councilman Katrubis, Billy Theodorakis, resident Imad Mehta, and Mayor Kranjak. You will note the improvements contemplated are for two parks within the borough, Woody Field and what I call the Irving Avenue Park. It may have a better name, I don't know what it is, but it's a basketball court and playground located at the corner of Irving Avenue and West Bayview. Both of these facilities require immediate attention. They have both fallen into serious disrepair. Andy will show some slides of what these facilities look like as we speak. At Woody Field, just to summarize the things that the issues that presently exist. The infields are overgrown and muddy. They're dangerously uneven and are a hazard to the children playing baseball, quite frankly, on those fields. The outfield surfaces are no longer level, and they do not drain after rain events. So you've got puddling that goes on for days, sometimes after storms, which causes many games to be canceled and practices as well. The children's playground equipment at Woody Field is outdated. The walking path needs to be replaced. Basketball courts are cracked and no longer level. Batting cages need to be refurbished. And the fencing throughout the Woody Field complex needs replacement. Just walking around the field, you'll see that they're leaning in the wrong direction in many locations. At the Irving Avenue Park, the basketball courts are currently unusable. Playground equipment is also seriously outdated. Fencing needs to be replaced, and the paths also need to be replaced. And our goal I'm speaking now for the committee as a whole, was to maintain the current uses at Woody Field, to improve those facilities, and make them better than they are today, and they'll add additional facilities that are lacking, such as a dog park and the covered pavilion, both of which don't exist today. So improvements, to summarize, and Andy Hippolyte will get into more details, but to summarize the improvements that we contemplate. Number one would be new playground equipment for the children. Would be increasing the Little League playing field to regulation size. As it exists today, the championship games that our town is many times playing in need to be moved to other facilities in other towns because our field is not of the appropriate size. So that needs to be expanded. We're talking about new turf playing surfaces for the four fields within what I call the sport complex, right? That's Little League baseball, a softball field, baseball field, and a soccer field that is within the softball and baseball field areas. We're talking about new dugouts and bleachers for the baseball fields, lighting for the sports complex to increase the hours of play and practice that our residents and children can use the facility, a dedicated dog park, a multi-use pavilion for the residents that would have a roof above it, upgrades to the basketball court, and actually relocating slightly the basketball court. And Andy will get into the reasons why that was necessary. And then the new walking path with a realignment to increase some passive space. Right now, there's some wasted space, and Andy will get into this a little further, but there's some space that's didn't need to be included within the sports area. So we're talking about realigning those paths to increase the passive area available outside the sports complex. We're talking about refurbishing the food concession building and the bathrooms that are located within. One more thing too, as we evaluated the uses in the park, it became very obvious that the one thing that we couldn't increase is the land area within the Woody Field complex. So there's a serious need here for additional passive park area within the borough. So we've got Woody Field that's basically a sports complex that's surrounded by walking paths and some limited passive space. But there really isn't enough passive space from the committee's perspective in the borough. So I urge the borough to evaluate and look into if additional land can be acquired, whether it's adjacent to Woody Field or some other location within the borough, to provide more passive space for the residents. As the community grows, the needs for park and parking needs will be increasing as well too. So with no further ado, I'll turn this over to Andy Hippolyte of Colliers Engineering. I've known Andy for more than 30 years, and I trust him and the advice he'll be giving to the borough and the residents tonight. He has the experience that got us through this process, and his firm also did the comprehensive review of the potential improvements back in 2016, 2017. So he's very much aware of the current needs for that ball field as it was back in 2016, and as those needs have actually increased as time's gone by. It's another, 6 years? So things haven't gotten better for sure in the past 6 years. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hippolyte. And I would ask if Billy or any other members of the committee would wish to speak briefly first. You can do so now, or you can do so after Andy speaks. I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Perino. I just want to make two comments, and I thank you for everything that you touched upon. All facts. Those are all facts, folks. It's all true, and it's all things that we have to deal with. In terms of the additional passive space, two things come to mind. One that I've been mentioning for quite a while, which is creating a connection from the park area over to the Rockefeller Lookout and connecting up with all the trails there. That could be a pedestrian bridge or tunnel. And the second thing is, it's no secret, I don't support the 800 Sylvan affordable housing high density project. And at the last meeting with the public, I've mentioned that I asked this council to consider, again, taking that property by eminent domain and using it for public purposes, which would include open spaces and recreational facilities. And I re-emphasize that with this council. We have the financial wherewithal to do that. Mr. Hippolyte, thank you for joining us tonight. And thank you for all your work and rendering. I see we have a color rendering now. And yeah, that's what I like about soccer fields. That it's just basically white and green. But all right, we'll take the baseball infield in there.
Thanks, Mayor. Laura, can you pull that rendering down so I can share my screen?
Sure. I'll just stop sharing it for a minute. Okay.
Okay, let me see, make sure I can share. I need you to allow me to share.
Okay, give me one moment. Yeah. Did you try it now?
Got it. Okay. Can you see my screen? Yes?
Yes.
All right, let me go from beginning. And you can still see it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I'd like to thank everybody. I'd like to thank the committee for involving us in this process. Just a few basic items. The committee charged us with looking at Woody Field and the entire complex beyond just the athletic field, and then also looking at the South Park down by West Bayview, we'll call it Veterans Park, to see what improvements can be made. As part of this project, if we go back to 2017, Mazer Consulting, which we were, and we now Colliers, we did an existing survey of the Woody Field complex, and that survey is still valid today. It covers everything from the boundary of the complex to the topography of the complex, also showing Johnson and a little bit of the surrounding areas. As you look on the map to the south side, you can see the batting cages and the outline of the tennis courts, all the way up to some of the access roads to the 910, 900, 910, 920, 930. Emergency access in Johnson Avenue shown on there. That map was used by us. We first did an evaluation of the existing park, and I'll go to some pictures. So as of just a few days ago, here are some pictures of the park. The path varies in width from 6 to 8 feet and is cracked in multiple locations. It also has multiple drainage areas where drains ponds on the path because of settlement over time. The fields are overgrown, not level, out of conformity. The fences around the field either lean or the mesh netting has become a hazard. All 3 fields at this point are in what we call disrepair. That's another picture looking from the big field, looking towards the softball field. Obviously, the field is in disrepair. This is another picture of the mound, the temporary mound that's on the big field, which it really shouldn't be on the big field, looking at the backstop and the fencing that's in disrepair. This is a picture looking towards the batting cages. The batting cages are overgrown. The fencing is warped and bent in various locations, and the netting is in some places
Andy?
not.
Andy,
Yes.
I'm sorry to cut you off. If you're sharing your screen, I'm only seeing the cover. If you're showing different, are you showing different photos for the public?
Really? Okay.
I see only 2 pictures.
Okay. Okay, hold on. Let me try. Can you see it now?
I
can
see.
Now we can see.
Now it's
Now we
changing.
can.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. I'll go 1 page at a time. So I go back again. You can see the existing survey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The third picture is a picture of an example of the existing path that's 6 to 8 feet and is cracked in multiple locations and has drainage problems throughout. Item 4 shows a picture of the larger field completely overgrown, poorly graded, fences bent. The mesh in the fences is warped and a hazard to the children. Picture 5 is looking across the backside of the bigger field towards the softball field. Same solution, the clay is at a grade and is overgrown. Picture 6 is another picture of the big field looking towards the backstop, which is literally out of square, is utterly a hazard. Picture 7 looks towards the batting cages. The batting cages fencing is in need of repair, which it can be repaired. The netting inside of it has multiple holes. It doesn't work that good. It all needs to be replaced. And the surfacing inside the batting cages is completely a hazard to people who use it. Picture 8 is a picture looking towards the we'll call it the Little League's prime field and towards the building. It's a little hard to see, but the building has multiple areas of repair. The soffits and any of the wood that's up above the roof is in need of repair. The roof's in need of repair. The outside masonry of the building is actually in good shape. Some of the windows need repair, and the inside of the building needs some upgrades. Picture 9 is a picture of the playground that I actually had designed and put in back in the late 90s. That playground is completely outdated at this point. The surface you're looking at is a mixture of a grass and wood chip surface. It should only be wood chips. It should not be grass. It has been overgrown for years and is completely in disrepair. This park needs to be completely removed. Picture 10 is an aerial. We flew a drone over the field yesterday to kind of get a high aerial. I have 2 directional pictures. This one is looking towards the tennis and basketball courts, just kind of showing the condition, the overall condition of the fields, which are in poor condition or worse than poor condition. It does show that the drainage ditches that run across it are coming through the field, which they shouldn't. And it just kind of highlights the overall condition. Picture 11 is another drone shot. You can see a little of Johnson. It kind of shows a little more of the big field and shows some of the commercial properties to the back and also with the tennis courts. So that takes us to 12. The committee charged us with coming up with a project where the fields were conforming as multi-use as possible and as least maintenance as possible, and also having a park that provided not only active recreation for the field use, but also passive recreation, the potential for concerts in the park, a dog park, a new playground, and refurbishing the areas around it. When you look at this sketch, I'll kind of walk you around the sketch from the center out. So in the center is the existing playing fields. Currently, right now, you have 3 baseball fields and a soccer field. In the new design, you'll have 3 baseball fields and a soccer field. The difference is this surface is synthetic turf that allows for almost no maintenance at all. It also allowed us to shrink the field as tight as we could. By shrinking the field as tight as we could, we created more open space around it. If you look to the upper left side, if you can see my mouse, that area used to be field. That area is now going to go back to green grass. The same around the right side of the drawing and the bottom. These areas were increased double their size to create open space. We also moved the basketball court back to allow for more open space in that area. Using synthetic turf fields, you're getting a lot of benefits. So right now, the bottom left field, which is your majors field, when we're done with this project, that field will be a 46-60 field, which is a Little League World Series conforming field, but it will also allow for 50-70 play, which is a transition year between 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds. So 13-year-olds and the late 12-year-olds play on that field. When we go to the upper field, the larger field, you'll have 3 levels of play there. You'll have 46-60, 50-70, and 60-90. So all levels of play can play there. When you go to the bottom right field, which was just basically was just a small children's softball field, it will now be a small children's softball field, an adult softball field, and or any other level of softball that wants to play there dedicated for that. Overlapping that in the white box is a full-size soccer field. You'll see that the full-size soccer field overlaps the 60-90 baseball field. That's because we don't have to account for natural grass to clay runoff. That'll be synthetic turf. So we're allowed to overlap them. If the field is all natural grass, everything has to back up. Everything's got to get smaller. You lose open space or area outside the field, and it becomes a larger complex. Along with this project, it was important to the committee to have a very passive or an active walking path. So the walking path that goes around the field was made to be 10 foot wide to allow both biking and walking on it. It connects to the basketball court, will connect to the tennis court. It will go up between at the top, which is a playground and a dog park, and allow for, again, a very passive walk with a child in a stroller to a very active walk or a biker to go around it. In the upper corner where the playground was, we're rebuilding the playground, making it more square, bringing in a new state-of-the-art playground, a playground that now will meet today's standards and be either a wood chip base or it can be a synthetic base. Either way, we want it to be very little maintenance. To the right of the playground, the path separates. It will be a dog park. That dog park could be constructed in 3 ways. It could be one overall dog park, or it can be split in half to have small dogs on one side and big dogs on the other side. The committee was also concerned about trees around the park. It's hard to see on this drawing, but if you look on the drawing, for instance, in this area, there's some large trees. We tried to take into account the trees that are on the site to maintain them. So if you look in the dog park area, there's white circles. Those white circles are existing trees, and the intent is to leave as many existing trees as possible. The only trees that this project would take down is if you walk the current field, there's probably a dozen or so trees that are dead. Those trees must come down anyway. Other than that, no existing trees will come down. On the left side of the project near Johnson Avenue, the committee wanted to put in a pavilion. The pavilion would have a high roof, a 14-foot high roof. It would allow for a stage to be set up in it. It can be used for everything from shelter to picnics to potentially have a concert in the park. And it would open up to the entire park so people have a place to sit on the synthetic turf area, so they're not sitting on grass. So for instance, if you had a rain event that day, you wouldn't have to cancel your concert because people could sit on synthetic turf, which would be dry, and the band or concert or whoever's in there doing the performance would be under cover. As part of this project, around it, all 6 dugouts were replaced with state-of-the-art dugouts. The Little League field, which is your kind of your premier field, would have 200-seat bleacher sets, but the 100-seat bleacher sets would be broken up. It would be about 50 seats on bleachers, and then a platform for both people with disabilities or in wheelchairs and or people who want to sit with chairs, but be up 4 feet in the air. The other fields would just have 40-seat bleachers and brand new dugouts. All 6 dugouts will be covered, will contain the proper seating and areas to hang bags and other stuff you bring to games. The batting cage area, you currently have 4 batting cage tunnels. The fencing around it is in bad condition but can be salvaged. So we would take off the mesh netting, salvage the framework, re-mesh net the fencing, and install the proper batting cage netting tunnels inside of the fenced in area, which is the proper way to do it. The surface that's there is already synthetic turf. It's in horrible condition. It needs to be replaced. So we remove that and replace it with actual batting cage synthetic turf. The basketball court, in terrible condition. The fencing's in terrible condition. It's cracked, needs to be replaced. We need to remove the entire court and the foundations. We would move it back towards the property line to give more space to the field area and the open space areas to allow for it to be out of the way. And then the last overall part of the project is to create 2 things, both lighting for the project. So we would reinstall, working with PSE&G, new decorative lights around the entire park. So the decorative lights would follow the new proposed path. Second to that, we would install an LED lighting, sports lighting system for the synthetic turf area for the baseball, softball, baseball, and soccer fields. We would install LED lights for the basketball court and LED lights for the tennis courts. Those LED lights can also be used to light the batting cages if there's a night game. The beauty about LED lights is very different than the old technology. When you turn an LED light on, you could literally aim the light perfectly. So if you were standing where the light was, you can measure 30-foot candles where my hand is here and 0-foot candles literally 6 inches away. That's how good those lights are. They also have instant on, instant off, and they also can be controlled by the recreation director or the coaches. So when the game's over, they can be shut off instantly. They can be used for security lighting if you want. The versatility in the LED lighting nowadays is second to none. Let me show you some pictures of examples of things we were trying to create here. This is an example of a regulation backstop in 2022 standards. This is an existing synthetic turf field in another community, and this backstop will be constructed to current standards. This is an example of a bleacher set that will be constructed on concrete pads next to the baselines. This is an example looking of a decorative light, though the decorative light would be picked by the committee, and how it would be installed on a path and what it would look like transitioning from a synthetic turf field to a path to a grass area. This is an example of a refurbished basketball court to regulation size. This is an example of a new playground to 2022 standards. This playground was constructed with a synthetic surface, so there was absolutely no maintenance, which is an option in this project. The previous playground at this site had wood chips installed, which we can do. That's really going to be a function of what look the town wants. kind of changing a little bit to the southern park down by West Bayview, you have the Veterans Park. You have both the basketball courts and the playground. In the bottom left is the playground, and the upper right is the basketball courts. In this particular project, the playground basketball courts would be removed. They would be constructed back in the same place, but brand new, state of the art. So you'd have state of the art 2 basketball courts, state of the art, brand new playground. The next 2 pictures are examples of pavilion styles that could be put in here, but I will tell you that the pavilion style will be picked by the committee, and can be anything from rustic or very woods looking to this one, to being more formalized, like this picture where you have different roof lines and ways to look at more decorative. But either way, the pavilion's a pretty large pavilion. It's gonna be 30 by 50 and allow for events to be held under it. The last thing I have is we did provide a cost estimate to council and the bond council. The project cost all in with everything we talked about is about 4.6 million, but all in with all costs, including legal, bonding, and professional fees, will be 5 million. It should just be noted that the borough has already received 2 grants for this project, one for $129,000 from Bergen County Open Space for the Pats. The second one was a second award of another $127,000 for more money for those paths and for the drainage around those paths. It is my anticipation that the borough could also apply for a 3rd grant for this project because of the ADA accessibility components. When we go back to, I'm gonna go back a little bit, when we go back to the rendering, this park will be made to be 100% ADA accessible. The current park is not 100% ADA accessible. So the walking paths and the fields would be 100% ADA accessibility. Synthetic turf meets the requirements for challenger games. Challenger games are people with disabilities who join their local challenger group, which would be the Bergen County Challenger Group, and they hold multiple games in one place at one time. Anybody with a wheelchair, walking, sight issues, it doesn't matter what they are, they'd be able to play here. So this park would be able to receive monies for designing it for people with disabilities. The dugouts will be designed for people with disabilities also, with both special locking handles, and the bleachers we designed the same way along with the pavilion. That would open you up for monies. I would give you an example. The borough of Montvale in 2020 and 21 received monies for both Fieldstone Fields and La Trenta Parks for creating synthetic turf surfaces that allowed people with disabilities to use them. So you are going to be open up to more grants even if you move forward with this project, which is a positive. And that is the basic presentation. I can do one of 2 things, either expand on it more, Mayor, or open for questions.
Is there anything else important that you wanted to mention? And I thank you for your presentation.
The only other thing I didn't mention is the committee was concerned that we're creating a new park, and they were concerned that the park should have some visual for the police to see us when we're not there. And our plan, at least in this concept, was to have in center field of the Little League field, or really center field of all 3 fields, have a flagpole there, a nice big flag with a big American flag, and the top of the flagpole could be repeater antennas for the police department, DPW to use. And also on that pole would be a camera so the police could look at the park at any time to make sure there's no bad activities taking place there.
Okay, so that's actually a good point. I met with the police chief and I mentioned that we will try to do our best to coordinate with whatever public safety and privacy requirements he feels are important, and I defer to him on those matters. But it's certainly available to us to create a safer park for everyone.
Mayor, if I may, this is Russell. Could we ask if either Billy or Tim wanted to say anything before we open to the public?
Could I just, thank you, Russ. Could I just add one thing, just so to give people a little more clarity on why we are, why we're going with synthetic turf? I was on a smaller committee. I think it was 4 years ago, Mayor. It was yourself, Lizette Duffy, and we went through, and I think and Ellen as well. We went through basically and redid all 3 infields. The project was $100,000, as well as re-leveled all the grass you see in between the fields. The field looked great. but it lasted 3 years. And now it looks exactly like you could see in picture 4 and below. So this was 100, this is, 3-4 years ago, people say, yeah, these infields look great, and they were great, but it's very difficult to maintain, and it's a large ask from the DPW to maintain such a complex. So I just wanted to add that.
That's a great point. Thank you. Yeah, those were well-intentioned plans, and it looks great when it's done, but just the combination of Mother Nature and people playing on those surfaces, it's just spending more money and getting to the same result. So I'm trying to avoid that now. Okay.
I just have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the aerial pictures, there were commercial buildings there. Okay, which companies are those?
That's CNBC in the back picture.
Okay, thank you.
You want?
I have a question. Can I add on comment here right now?
Good.
Yes, okay. I look at all the here proposal. I'm thinking about it. We can add on here a lot of residents, they practice golf, they go to the golf range. Any, golf range cage we can add on here for the senior or middle class. This is for the only just kids only. Why not? Here a lot of residents, they are interested about it.
So I think, Mark, what you're saying is you wanted to have a golf driving range there?
Yes.
Not the driving range, just looks like a small, looks like a, the baseball cage, something like that. It's not the big one.
You could, so Mayor, I could jump in. So on this park in this area, right now you have 4 batting cages or 4 batting tunnels supporting the baseball fields. In most cases, you would need 3 tunnels, 1 for each field when there's an active game going on. That's assuming there's an active game going on at all 3 fields at the same time, which on this layout technically is possible. You could convert one of those cages to a golf hitting cage. It's not a problem. That would really be up to the committee. The cage may have to be made a little bit wider, but the netting you use for a golf hitting cage is the same netting you use for a batting cage.
Yeah, that's maybe a better idea for the resident. I really recommend about it for the the senior or middle age adult can be practiced over there. Maybe if you are not available here, maybe we can go to here Memorial Park. We can add on over there. That is cost is not much high, so please consider about this one.
That's something we could consider. Andy, is that for driving or for irons?
So you could design a hitting cage at that length. There are 70-foot tunnels for they could hit a driver. They can hit whatever they want. The netting would stop the ball, so they're just gonna get a good swing in. Okay.
So Mark, just to clarify a point, you mentioned that it's just for children the way it's laid out right now, and it's for everybody right now except golfers. How's that?
I agree, but at least we are renovating everything, so I ask you guys to consider about it. This kind of what are the benefit for the resident.
I think you're right, Mark. There is a big segment of population here that play golf.
No, this is not dangerous. There's a cage, and they can bring their own clubs, and they can do practice, and that's their responsibility, not our responsibility.
Yeah, we can take one of the batting cages and make it available for golf only. That's not an issue. But we can just change the surface to put in a driving mat at one end and set the net back in on the other end so it catches their balls. They bring their own balls. It'd be designated for golf only. It's fine. It actually is a great idea.
Okay.
Andy, would we be able to add 2 more lanes?
Sure.
Possibly?
You could, yeah.
Okay, so that's fine. I would support that. I remember a couple of years ago, I was out on a run and I saw somebody throwing a javelin on the field, and that is something that we cannot have. Okay,
Mayor, can I add?
no
may I-
javelin, no discus, shot put maybe, but no javelin or discus.
Could I add one thing, Mayor, to Councilman Park's question? And we dealt with this years ago. I know what this on the surface, this looks like 3 baseball fields, right? But if you talk to Mr. Sango, the recreation director, it's a lot more than that. There's a lot of things for the children here, and the children will benefit tremendously, yes. But however, I could tell you, as coaching a game and having my parents come to watch my kids, you know, I had my father walking the track, my youngest daughter in the playground, my son on the one field, my daughter on the other, and it was really used for everybody in the community. And I think with the lights here, there'll be a tremendous benefit to the community, as well as the pavilion, which you could host many events. I know our PTA does a great job with their fall festival. This will be a great place to host a fall festival that's a community event, or our Englewood Cliffs Night Out. So it will serve as multi-purpose purposes, as well. If another example is Fort Lee has their rec department where they have a stage, and their rec a place on Anderson, and they have concerts or what have you. As it doesn't show here, but Auntie pointed out to us, there'll be plenty of outlets there by the pavilion where you could put speakers or what have you, and really make this into a community event. It's very multi-purpose. Don't get caught up that you see 3 baseball diamonds. There's many, many things you could do here.
That's a good point. Thank you. I see hands up, and I think they're from the public. We are going to open to the public, but there's an internal discussion taking place first. Is there anyone else from the committee? Tim, did you want to say anything?
No, other than I thank the committee for all their hard work. But everyone has done a pretty good job. Mark made some important comments, and I urge him to at the very least, Mark, have the residents send their comments into the mayor and council, please.
Right. So as someone who's new to golf, I think Mark is telling me that I'll have no excuses for playing the way I play. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So anyone else from the council? Mr. Di Gregorio, you're very quiet this evening. Okay. Mr. Luciano, you're also very quiet this evening.
See here?
I don't think he's here.
Not here.
No.
Okay, I'm sure he has something better to do.
Quite quiet.
Okay. We could open to the public if the council wishes.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Okay. If there's anyone from the public who wishes to be heard, just raise your hand virtually or turn your camera on. Call on you to state your name and address. I see a hand up by someone with the initials LC. Oh, and I also see Miss Alvarado. So, Wendy, for you, there is a dog park. We're finally
Thank
getting
you.
there.
Yay.
Actually, there's 2 dog parks.
Yeah,
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Could RC please identify herself, name and address, please? Thank you.
Yes, my name is Rose Chen, 35 West Bayview Avenue. So I wanted to ask the committee, you heard about pickleballs? That is a really upcoming sport, and it's for all level, young and senior. That has been going around in Bergen County. So I thought maybe some
I'm sorry, we're having trouble hearing you. Is your hand over the microphone?
Yeah, my mic is on.
Okay,
Maybe it's
yeah, I think that's
Is
better.
this better now?
Yep, much better. Thank you. So you're
Okay.
referencing pickleball. Go ahead, please.
Right. Like to know if the committee or the joint board here will able to draw some courts for pickleball. While we could be sharing with like basketball if no one's playing. It's basically drawing the marking on the ground
Well,
and put a net on.
I could probably answer that. So the committee did not talk about pickleball, but in these particular designs, both in this park and the one to the south, you could overlay 2 pickleball courts on the basketball court, and you could overlay pickleball courts on the existing tennis courts up here. You also could overlay pickleball courts, at least 4 of them on the south basketball court. So that is definitely possible. The committee would have to tell us to do that, but that's literally just line striping, and then pickleball comes with these temporary nets that you could bring yourself or that recreation can provide.
Correct. Yes, I appreciate if the committee would look into it.
Yeah, great.
Sure,
Great.
we would certainly support that. It's actually amazing. I'm glad you brought that up, how quickly that's taken off. I'm not sure where it originated, but it's certainly become somewhat of a rage.
Yeah, it's a very fun game. It's for all level, all ages. So I think the residents will enjoy.
If I may, Andy, can you fit 2 pickleball courts on 1 basketball court?
Yes.
What's the requirements?
You would, on the basketball court you see on this drawing, you'd fit a pickleball court on the short direction, perpendicular to the long direction. So 1 on this side and 1 on that side, and you could fit 4 on the other courts in the south.
I'm just thinking out loud that it may make more sense to do it on the south courts. The question is, then you have to store, there's nets, I guess, that need to be stored somewhere.
So the pickleball players, it's an interesting group. I've done dozens of these courts all over Bergen County. The nets come in a tube. It pulls out. A lot of them bring them themselves. Some towns provide them. Some towns don't provide them. It's a very versatile sport that requires 4 paddles, a couple of balls, and a portable net. So if you put the lines down, people will bring their net and play. Trust me.
Very interesting. It's a great idea.
Yep. An old guy like me can play that sport. I can't play tennis anymore.
I got an invitation myself about a week ago to play for the first time. So I haven't tried it yet, though.
Yeah.
Yes, so it seems like we could accommodate that request without too much trouble.
We can. I put a note down. I put a note down for the golf driving range and the pickleball. They're easy accommodations.
Right. Mrs. Alvarado, go ahead, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Wendy Alvarado, 726 Floyd. I am super excited to see that we are going to be working on the park. This is the largest common area that we have here in town, and it needs work. So I am super excited. I think we should go for it and do what we have to do to make it a better space. I am glad to hear that it will be more inclusive to more activities. And I'm wondering, what if we needed to do maybe like some Zumba or yoga, stuff like that? Will we have a space for that in there?
You do. So you'd be able to do it under the pavilion. The pavilion's 30 by 50. If you look, the pavilion's the same size as the building that's down here.
Okay.
So you can literally have outdoor classes under cover for 50 people, literally.
Yeah. Wendy, be careful. You'll get me for yoga, but not for Zumba.
And the dog park, thank you so much, because we have a community of dog people that love dogs here. And I've only lived here for 2 years, but I've met so many good friends, and we meet in the park, and it's overdue. We need a space. So I am very glad that's in the plan. We really needed that. And yeah, dogs, and we are doing that. I see it. And hopefully those activities will follow, and we can all, hang out in the park and meet more people. It's been great with the dog community, and I'm sure that can extend to other activities. So thank you so much. I really hope that this goes through, because it will be a great thing for us. It's a wasted space in so many ways. And when he was pointing out everything that needs work, I'm like, yes, it's in bad shape. Like, I'm there all the time. I'm a few houses away. So that would be a great improvement to the town. Thank you so much.
So, Wendy, I appreciate you being always supportive of that and being engaged. And I know it's more than just about the dogs, it's about the people getting together. So-
Absolutely, and that's the point. And also the turf, I was not in agreement. I'm like, oh my God, fake grass. And then my son, who's a sustainable development major, he's like, no, that's great. It's very sustainable. So I'm on board. I was like, oh no, that's not a good idea, but I'm on board with that as well. And we will actually save money and have less chemicals there for the kids and the pets. So it's a win-win. Thank you so much.
Excellent, thank you. Next, I see Tina's iPhone. I see your hand raised. I'm sorry, I don't have your last name. Go ahead, Tina's iPhone.
Hi, this is Tina Bowen. We're going to be living at 508 Floyd Street in about 2 weeks.
Welcome.
So we've been, thank you. Yes, we've been there. I mean, we bought the house almost 2 years ago, but we've been in the community, and I do have 2 small children. So we were at the playground recently. So I'm really happy to see this being addressed. I was trying to listen very carefully, but I'm not sure if I missed this. If this does go through, is there an expected time frame, and will any of the sports that you guys are offering, like my daughter will be doing soccer in the fall, like will any of that be impacted by this happening?
I can explain that. If, we'll assume tonight, if the mayor and council introduces an ordinance to fund this tonight, they would have it adopted and fully ready to be designed in 45 days. As soon as they do that, the design would start. That would put us end of September. We design in October, go out to bid in November, be under construction in December. This project will take 3 months. So for December, January, and February, the park will be closed. In March 1st-ish, sometime in March. I mean, you can't hold me to the date because material supplies are still a problem right now. But let's assume in March, the field opens up for full play. So the closure will be December, January, February, part of March. You're fully open for play. As soon as the field is done, it's open instantly. There's no time to wait because it's not a sod field. If it was a sod field or all grass, if it got done in March, you couldn't start playing until the fall. You have to wait 6 months.
Okay, thank you for that. And then also, so like the weather is not going to impact the completion of it.
It will not.
Okay.
So the great thing about a park like this being constructed out of synthetic turf, you can work on it all winter. There's nothing that stops it. If it snows, you just plow the snow out of the way.
Beautiful. All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Welcome to town again.
Welcome.
Yeah. Lynn Norton, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Lynn Norton, 9 Willow Drive. I have a list of questions, so hopefully I'll be able to ask them, or I'll be able to answer them. Hopefully I won't get cut off on them, but it's no secret I'm not in favor of turf or lights, but I was quite surprised today, actually, when I was walking around the field that I don't think the DPW has been there in a month.
I saw them there the other day.
Oh, well, I hope that's right, but the field just has not been maintained, and that is a shame. Neither has the playground, and it worked out great for the pictures. But I understand this council doesn't want to put the whatever money it takes to maintain the field on an annual basis, and it does take money. I mean, way back when, we used to have a dedicated employee, and that's all he did. And the fields were pristine, the fields were beautiful, especially the Little League field. But I guess the DPW doesn't have the staff, and the town doesn't want to commit to doing that anymore. So we get to the turf. I'm also going to assume that you guys have looked into the type of turf, that we're not using the rubber, crushed rubber or tires or anything else that may be questionable.
Okay, I'm making notes as you go through, and then we'll answer all your questions. So
okay, good. I'll just go through and then we can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Maybe if Andy can talk about the turf a little bit. The lights will be dedicated lights. I ask that you all remember that you are in a residential area. Personally, it's not going to affect me except for the blasting of the Little League games. But there was a time where we wanted lights, and we were told you need to talk to everybody who surrounds the field to make sure they want to have lights on the field, which they didn't. But I thought it was a very wise thing because people bought their houses, and some may say, yes, it's across from a park, but that park in the 62 years that I've been living here has not had lights. So there is no expectation for me or other long-termers that there would be lights. So all I ask is that you take into account that it's residential, talk to the neighbors so that we don't run into a problem legally. So where's my other list? That was just the general list. Okay, so you have the entire field that's turf. You have the entire field that's walled off. And I saw the 20-foot fences, the 20-foot mesh, which actually is a great idea during the softball games because we have seen people plunked on their heads. So the question there, is this going to be up all the time? Is it going to be a perpetual 20-foot fence so that you can't really have good visuals across the field?
So no, let me answer that real quick. We'll call it 20 foot, even though it's not 16 foot high. The backstop area just surrounding the home plate will have a 16-foot angled fence to keep the balls in. Down the baselines past both dugouts, just the first and third, you'll have 8-foot high. Everywhere else, it'll be 4 feet. It'll be pretty much the same type of fencing you have now, just more up to date, meeting current standards. It's not going to look that different.
Oh, okay, because on the map there, it was, or at least in the version that I have, it may be an older version, it said a 20-foot high sports fence, so sport netting, excuse me.
No.
Okay, so it'll be open, you can see green, even if it's fake green.
Yes.
But you can see the green. Okay, so that was one of my questions. And will the field be open? So if somebody on a weekend wants to go out and play football, flag football, or throw a frisbee and not throw a discus or a javelin, are they then able to do that?
Yeah, the field's open now. So the field's completely fenced in now and the gates are left open. I would assume unless the mayor and council wants to change the regulations, it could be left open all the time.
So I think what'll happen is the committee is going to review, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Katrubis, the committee will review all the existing rules and regulations and then make a recommendation to the entire governing body if anything needs to be changed.
Okay, because as you consider it to the entire committee, when our kids were in high school or even in college, they would come back, they'd play football on the field, they'd have a good time. It was just part of their activities because certainly in some of the high schools, the kids are not going to necessarily play high school sports because it's very competitive. So sometimes they like to come home from school and have pickup games. So I would just hope that the fields are going to be available to them.
There's no reason, because it's synthetic turf and it's not grass, there's no reason to close it. The field doesn't need any resting period. It doesn't need to be seeded, sodded, fertilized. It doesn't need any chemical treatment on it. It doesn't need any closure because they put down some type of pesticide. It needs none of the above.
We will actually encourage what we used to call when I was a kid pickup games,
Right.
and the annual Thanksgiving Day Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So we have those items. I'm going to go back to your first three. I'm writing
Mayor-
them down on this.
Mayor,
board.
would-
Did
Wait,
you have
I'm
anything else?
done.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
Okay.
Ms. Norton, would you mind if I jumped in here? Because I don't mean to cut you off, but it's important what you just brought up about closing off the field. Maybe if Billy, if you can give some input, because we've talked about this in the past in terms of other municipalities, specifically Fort Lee, and why is it that they have their area gated off? Can you speak on that a little bit?
Well, I think Fort Lee has separate parks that are dedicated just to Little League. So those fields are gated off, but a field like Constitutional Park in Fort Lee that has baseball fields too, that is open to the public, right? So I know we need to talk to this about a committee, but I know we always said the reason for leaving these three fields was to give people an opportunity, father, son, mother, daughter, whatever the case may be, might want to come and hit a couple of ground balls so their kid play soccer with their kids on weekends or after school or at night once we have lights and enjoy the field. So Andy, I don't think we ever anticipated on locking it off, but as the mayor said,
No reason to.
revisit all the rules, but
There's no reason to lock it off.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. They just built a brand new synthetic turf field in my town, and the field's open every day, has LED lights on it. It's used, it doesn't bother the residents because they're LED lights. My kids get on and use it just for fun, and sometimes they get on and just hang out and do nothing, and sometimes they get on and play. It's open all the time.
Yeah.
No reason to do it.
And yeah, and Edgewater as well is open all the time on River Road, I
Yep.
believe. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Crestfield, Merritt Field down the hill from you, Crestfield's open all the time.
Yeah.
So is Tenafly Field.
Ms.
Okay, so-
Norton, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I
wanna go
did.
back to Your first three. Go ahead, keep going. I'm ready.
And thanks for putting the map out early, so we actually had a chance to take a look at it. The pavilion. I understand the use of the pavilion. I would hope we'll put in some ordinances, so we have noise ordinances and time ordinances. So perhaps it stops at 9 so that you respect the people who do live across the street.
Yes.
Because they do have young kids who may need to, you know, if you have infants, if you have little ones who need their sleep, if you have elderly who need their rest, you don't want to constantly have that noise into the late hours. I mean, I personally have somebody behind me who keeps the music going till 1:30 in the morning. And you know what? It's not a nice thing.
So that's a good point. We want to, we want to create a useful park for everyone and let everyone also have their, quiet enjoyment of their own homes. So there's really nothing that's going to change by having a pavilion. No one's going to be blasting music there. We have noise ordinances. I'm sorry that your neighbor is not considerate, but there is a noise ordinance.
Example that it just can go on a lot longer than you anticipate, and people would like the enjoyment of their yards. If they're having a party on a Sunday afternoon for elderly people, just so perhaps we can actually put in some rules so they can be followed.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And as far as the location of the pavilion, I did have a concern of its proximity to Johnson Avenue. We were actually walking up there today, and it looks to me, of course, I don't have a scale measure, but it looks to me like you've got 10 feet between the edge of the pavilion and Johnson. There's a lot of hubbub on a weekend, on a Saturday, with kids getting out of the car and running around. And to me, for what it's worth, I think that we should consider maybe pulling it back 5 feet, because the playground is sort of where the playground is today sort of seems to be the minimum of where it can handle the havoc that's raised by kids getting dropped off and running around and having their bikes and having their whatever, so that they don't end up in the street. My concern is that having it so deep into Johnson will be a safety issue. I don't know if there's any other place you could put it. It looks like you've used every inch of the space, but I would probably shrink it to allow more space between that and Johnson.
You can slide it, the path can bend in that area. You can move it further away from Johnson. If the committee wants to, it's not an issue.
Andy, yeah, why don't you think about that comment?
Yep.
See if maybe you move the pavilion in and the path around the back of it.
Yeah, we can do it. Sure. That's actually not a big deal at all. We can definitely do that.
I'll throw something out there as just a thought as well too. If we move the pavilion to the other side of the track, but a little closer to the children's playground, and we created that passive area there, I'm just wondering if a corner of that could maybe be utilized for the pavilion. And we'll talk about it more at the committee level, but I think it's a valid point. Tim, was there a reason why we wanted that closer to Johnson? I don't recall if there was a reason why we had it there.
No, there's no reason it's closer to Johnson, and we have to remember this is only a conceptual sketch. We put it there so if you were to have some type of concert in the park, the people watching it were on the turf and away from Johnson Avenue, and the pavilion would be the farthest out anybody comes. But the point's well taken. It is pretty close to Johnson. We could slide it closer to the fence, as the mayor said, run the path behind it, so it's as far away from the road as it gets, and the activity stays on the fields, not out near Johnson and the residents. Great, good, really good comment.
Yeah, and then I just wanted to echo the comments for the golf cage. Mark, great idea. I actually had written that down myself, just something for the 40 to 60 plus year olds. that are active, and the pickleball courts is another great idea because it is very active play. And I think actually even maybe the tennis courts, so you don't take the basketball courts away. I have seen lots of pickup games. Very happy to see on Johnson Field that Sunday morning, there's groups and groups of people just having fun. So anyway, thank you.
Go ahead. I was just going to make a comment about the pickleball. I'm sorry, about the golf cages. I think if we do any, we need to do at least 2. I
Yeah.
have a feeling they're going to be very popular, and whether you put 2 or 3, I think they're going to get a lot of use. So maybe we could even talk about expanding, leaving the 3, at least 3 of the batting cages, or 4, and adding, a couple of additional cubbies to the I guess that'd be to the west.
Yep.
Okay.
And do you see an issue with that?
No, I do not.
Okay. So
Thanks for the opportunity.
you're welcome. Let's just go back to the first 3 things that Ms. Norton said. The first one was the DPW and the maintenance of the fields. It's been a challenge, right? Because if you have natural grass and you have people running on it, there's no time to regenerate. And as I've learned, you need a considerable amount of time in between play to let grass regenerate. And the DPW does a great job, and I thank them. But they're not professional groundskeepers. They don't have licenses to actually administer chemicals that would be needed, that everybody else would be jumping up and down about probably if we did. So turf seems like a very robust option for us to be able to have repeated play in all types of weather and after rainstorms as well. So that's why the decision was made to go to turf. Given that, we can't just keep spending money to do the same thing over and over and get to the same result, which is 2 or 3 years after we buy new grass, it just looks terrible and unplayable and uneven surfaces.
Yeah, I agree. If you can't spend enough money to keep it up, it probably isn't worth keeping up.
It would be
And I can just say, Mayor, I can just jump in real quick.
yeah.
We've been involved in these studies with a number of colleges about what it takes to maintain a natural grass field. You have 4 fields here, and there is a little overlap, but you have 4 fields here. Each field takes $50,000 a year. You have to be committed to about 6 to 8 treatments of different fertilizers and pesticides a year. And you have to be committed to be closing the fields for no less than 4 months a year for no play, where the fields will never be maintained. So you'd need $200,000 plus the manpower to do the work. It's a significant amount of money, or the result is what happens now. DPW doesn't have the money, doesn't have the manpower, and doesn't even have the technical licenses to put down the right fertilizers and pesticides. So you can't take care of it. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And what kind of are you using? What's the makeup of the whatever that stuff is that gets in your socks?
Yeah, actually, what I was going to say before we get to that, I was going to say my son played college football, and the field they played on would only host a football game once every 2 weeks. No one practiced on it. No other sports were played on it. We just don't have the space and number of fields to be able to rotate people out, teams out, and play somewhere else. So we are very limited in terms of our open space, and the decision was made to go to turf. What I can say is that we are looking at keeping everyone healthy and safe, and this is where Andy talks about the actual type of turf. Go ahead, Andy.
Right, the turf has changed a lot in the years. So now synthetic turf now is made of almost all recyclable products. So they put it back into the field. The backing is a fabric backing. The filament's now a monofilament fiber, very similar to what you use in fishing line. The infill is a mix of a number of products. There's sand in it. There is recycled rubber in it. It's recycled from a lot of different things, from sneakers to tires to other items. And inside it, or on top of that, is a product called Cool Play, or vermiculite product, which is a rubber coated stone product, which reduces the heat. And once the field reaches its life, which is probably at the 20-year mark, almost 100% of the field can be recycled. It's about 85% in its entirety, and that recycled field can be actually reused and put back in the field you take out and put back in again. So it's become a very sustainable item now in the world. It's every product that's in this field you use in your house every day.
And I think the last item that Ms. Norton raised was the lights themselves. And yeah, and you could speak to the full cutoff nature of those lights. And
I can. So if you look in this picture, and I can't really zoom. If you look in this picture in the background are sports lights. Those sports lights are the newest technology in LED lights. These LED lights were invented about 10 years ago. They were very cost prohibitive. They're not anymore. They're very commonplace now. If you look in this picture, there is a home within 30 feet of those light poles. When those lights are turned on, the back side of that home is completely dark. So I can take a meter and take a reading at the home, it's 0. I can take a reading on the field, it's 30-foot candles. That's how good these lights are nowadays. The residents will get more lights on their property from the decorative lights put around the path than they will from the sports light.
Andy, just to add to that, Saddlebrook has those lights as we spoke. And I was coaching a game and I had parents drive past the field because from the street when they were driving, there was no glare or of the lights, reflecting onto the street. It was completely dark. So it has changed. The other thing to add, there'll be, as we said, there'll be lights everywhere, batting cages, tennis courts. The tennis courts will have a timer. You push the button, it'll stay on for 45 minutes. It might flicker. You could push the button on again, but whatever the town ordinance might be, 9 o'clock, 9:30, you could push it 100 times. It will come back on again.
Correct. And then what I'll tell you, Billy, is both the police, the recreation director, and coaches can have access to the lights if you want on their regular phone or
Yep.
iPhone or Android, and they can turn it off and on from there. It's not even an issue. The technology is unbelievable.
Yep. And the one other thing I want to add that Andy, you explained well, was the flagpole. Right, you'll see when we get the price. The flagpole is expensive, but it is well worth it with the camera that will be installed on top of the flagpole. The police department will be able to basically survey the whole field without even being there via the camera, as well as Andy pointed out. That's basically, I call it the server, and you could add as many cameras throughout the town as much as you want in addition off that flagpole. So I was very impressed with that feature, and having 3 children, that makes me feel a lot more comfortable.
We do a lot of work for Union County Park System and Bergen County Park System, and they all have installed cameras in their parks and their flagpoles. It allows the police to watch the parks for vandalism and/or illicit activities, and it can be expanded. There's no limit to its expansion. It all ties into your 911 center. Nobody has to be there. It does provide a benefit that most people don't realize, in that if somebody does fall, get hurt, something happens, the police are now notified even before 911's called, and they can alert 911.
I'd also like to expand on that. You'll be able to add those cameras to various intersections throughout town.
Correct.
Entrance and exit points that are key to the police department.
Yep.
yeah, so the police chief is going to be speaking with you, Andy, on that item. 'Cause he and I talked about what other towns are doing and the grants that are available and how you get those paid for.
Yeah, I would talk to the Borough of New Providence, where I'm also the engineer. They have now put these cameras in every park plus multiple intersections in town, and it's provided unbelievable support to the police department.
Yeah. And I also, while everyone's on, and I see we have a lot of people on, I encourage everyone, lock your car doors, take your fobs out, close your windows. The car thefts in town result from open doors, open windows, and a fob in the car. So the last point on the lights is that there's also no light pollution above the light.
None.
So that it's a dark space from the sky, which is, it's getting to be quite an issue and more important. So we're dealing with that. And then I think Ms. Norton's, out of her 9 items, the last one, just to be clear, we touched on it, was that we are going to look at all the rules and regulations, including the noise regulations. And I guess since you mentioned it, we'll take a look at the non-park noise regulations and ordinances as well, because I've been getting a lot of complaints lately and maybe it's just pool party season. And, what I would do is if you're throwing a party and your music is loud, invite your neighbors. That'll hopefully work. Okay, I see another hand up. Actually, Michael Gans, he had his hand up. I don't see him now. Is Michael Gans there? Okay, he did have his hand up before, and it's not up now. I don't see any other hands. If there's anyone on a telephone, just unmute yourself and identify yourself so you can be heard as well, because I have no other way of knowing if you want to speak.
Mayor, this is Michael Glantz.
Hi, what's your address, please?
10 Samford Drive. So
Thank you.
We are obviously very close to the park. You answered most of the questions, and I commend you, your committee, your professionals on your preparedness, and I think you did a really good job. The one question, you talked about the newer turf. I've been very involved in turf and lighting in the past, and I'm trusting that what the gentleman said about this turf is that it doesn't get as hot, because the older turf on a really hot day would burn a kid if they weren't wearing pants and they slid into second base or home, whatever, or playing soccer, did a slide. So it's great if it doesn't get that hot. If it does, will you have watering facilities? Because that's what they used to do for the turf. I don't know if they still do, where they would water them down on hot days just to keep them cool.
That's a great question. Speaking of the father of an offensive lineman at Bergen Catholic, whose hands were perpetually burned on the turf there, I turned that over to Andy.
Yeah, so two things. One is just being a field designer for 30 plus years, we advocate having water available near every baseball infield and for a soccer field. So there'll be multiple water areas for these fields. You should always have it just to wash down or do whatever. No, in the old days, they used to water the fields down to keep them cool. You don't need to do it anymore. They install this product over the field, which lowers the temperature to the same temperature as grass. If you want a location where it's installed, and you can see it in the borough of Montvale at a school called Fieldstone School. Fieldstone School has a synthetic turf field that's twice the size of this complex. The entire complex has cool play on it. You can walk in that field. I did it the other day when it was 110 degrees because there was something we had to look at. I did it in a suit and tie, and it was hot, but it was no hotter than the grass next to it. So
good. Okay. I'm pleased to hear that you intend to light the tennis courts, the basketball courts as well. I'm totally in favor of lights. It just increases your use of the fields, and is incredibly important.
He's in favor of lights.
For an important program for the use of the fields. So my question is, if in fact it's a $5 million bond, what is the impact expected to be on the local, on the average homeowner?
Great question. Tim, I know you looked into that. Can you answer?
Well, we were supposed to have bond counsel here tonight to address that question. And unfortunately, they couldn't make it. However, we did do a quick calculation, and it really came down to a 5-year bond, about $8.8 million. Please don't quote me on that. By the time it's all paid off, if it's done in 30 years.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah. Yes.
And I did that off of a simple interest, but if you then just divide that by the amount of households we have in town, it would equate to about $200 or less than $200 per household, and that doesn't even include any of the income that would be coming in from the corporate entities. But we will have a much firmer number at some point in the future, as soon as we're able to. We've been processing a lot of information. We know that that's a key, that is definitely key, but because the number on the onset was just so low, we weren't able to pinpoint it until they.
I'm not looking for an exact number, and I wouldn't expect you to have an exact number. And I just, my hope is that it's not a burdensome number for the elderly people in the community, and folks who might be struggling as it is. So
Yeah.
the rest of us, it sounds negligible.
It's good, good point. The other thing that I really need to mention this, because this is one of the reasons I got involved in politics, was that there will be absolutely no politician's name on anything having to do with this park. There'll be no plaques, no buildings named after anyone, no parking spots. It's going to be a park for our residents, period. So just want to make that clear to everyone.
And then, a comment, and I don't expect you to respond to this right now because it's probably, I don't know if it's something you've thought of. So I was chairman of Parks and Recreation for almost 20 years in my town in Westchester, where I lived before this. And the size of the town is about the same as this one. And their recreation department was robust. 5 full-time people and about 6 part-time people. They maintained all the fields. They have far more fields than we do, so there's a lot more work for them to do there. But they had a department that created robust programming. And in my experience here, we don't have that. And again, that's nobody's fault. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying, I think it's something to consider, because when you build this field, it's like Field of Dreams. You build it, they will come. People are going to want to use it. And in creating additional programming might be beneficial to senior citizens, which somebody mentioned a little earlier, people that are empty nesters, and then of course, the children and the teens in the community. So just something to think about. No need to respond to it.
So that's a great point. We could respond and we could actually improve. And now that you've identified yourself as an expert, we'll ask you for your advice from time to time as well. And if you want to get more involved, please let us know. This year we actually hired a recreation director who's been doing a.
Yes, I read that. I read that. And that's a great start.
Yeah.
A great
So
start.
Marco Sango has been doing a very nice job. Great guy. And I think the next thing up is the Englewood Place 5-kilometer road race. It's a run walk. The walk.
I think all of that is wonderful, and I think that's a great start. I probably should have held my tongue on that and waited to see, how much stuff happens over the next year. Okay.
No, we'd love to have you give us ideas, and Marco's very receptive to that. So
I'd like to speak on that as well. Our recreation department has been completely gutted, and we had to recreate everything. It wasn't exactly easy, but once we brought Marco on board, he's been doing a very, very good job, and it'll get better as time goes on.
All good things take time, don't they?
That
Look,
is true.
last comment, and I appreciated your comment, Mayor, that you're going to keep politics out of this. So if I may, let's, sometimes, what was it, Kenny Rogers who said, know when to hold them, know when to fold them. If you guys go eminent domain, you're going to be mired in lawsuits and more money spent on lawyers. I think it's time to move on. And that's just my last comment. And thank you very much for all your hard work on all of this, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see anyone else who hasn't spoken already. And at this point, please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see anyone else. And if there's anyone on the phone.
Yes. Hi, Mayor. This is Rose Chen again. I'm on 35 West Bayview. My concern here, I brought it up to the board before, it's the parking. If you come down to West Bayview, we have a kiddie park at the corner of Irving and the veteran field, but then right there, it's a sharp turn. a lot, we need some alternate right there. A lot of people, the cars are parked at the curve, and it's accident is doomed to happen, and it shouldn't be parking at the curve. So that will help. And a lot of little kids run around, they think it's a dead end street, but when the driver coming down from West Bayview or coming up, they have limited visibility when cars parked at the corner.
Well, we can
that's
do
a
it
great point.
as part of the project. What we can do is we can work with the police chief to see if we can actually create a little parking along here, even widen the road a little bit on the park side, and create parallel spots in areas where you can see and areas where you can't, stripe it so you don't park there.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, I
we're also gonna
appreciate
ask the police chief to do a full traffic review there.
Yep.
Maybe add a stop sign in the bend there as well.
Good idea.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great point. I'm glad you did that. So I don't see anyone else. If there's anyone on their telephone who wishes to be heard, please just unmute yourself so I don't miss you. Otherwise, let's give it a minute, or a couple seconds. Okay, so there's no one else. Can I have a motion to close the public portion, please?
I'll make the motion.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So we're at a public portion, and I'm trying to find my agenda on another screen. Laura, okay, I got it.
We have the discussion, Mayor, after public. We kind of went through that already.
Yeah, so we, number 6, discussion, park renovation, field improvement committee. Just to follow our agenda in good form here, is there anyone on the governing body who wishes to be heard, or on the committee who wishes to be heard?
Mayor, just a quick summary. I've been taking notes as well too. There's I think some really great comments brought up on things that we can add to the facilities at a minimal cost. So I think we'll go back. And my sense is that if the council sees their way through to introducing this ordinance for the bonding, we will continue. I'm speaking about the committee now. Our work, which is by no means done. Right, we've got one sketch here with a plan, and there's nothing in that we heard tonight that can't be accomplished. So we'll go back and tweak some of these things and evaluate the things that can be added and where they can be added if you decide to move forward with that. But I encourage the council to indeed introduce the ordinance, and let's get this process going. And one thing I'd like to add that's really important when you talk about turf, the committee spent many hours back and forth about grass, hybrid, or turf, and I became convinced, and I think the committee feels unanimously it's the right move. Part of that is that you'd lose a full season of play if we did either a hybrid or a grass field, and we don't have another facility as to fall back on, for the kids to play softball, baseball, or little league ball. So that's how we ended up with the turf, because it was really the right thing to do.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point, because the school went through that, and I think they lost a considerable amount of field usage over time there when they renovated their field with turf, natural grass. I see on my agenda, this is more of a question for the borough attorney. I see next is the resolution amending the 2022 capital budget, that's 22-197. But I do not see a resolution approving the plan. I would have thought that we would have had a renovation of the park plan resolution as well as presented. Why isn't that on the agenda?
Good evening, Mayor. This is Mike Collins here for Matt Mensch. At this point in time, I think, this was more of a discussion with providing guidance to the borough engineer. I think a more formal vote would take place if and when the plans are finalized and it's issued for bid, and also when the bids are received to formally award a contract. If the council wants to, memorialize its position, it could certainly make a motion to move forward with the plans as prepared by the engineer, but I don't believe any binding action is required at this time.
So you're saying that we could amend our capital budget for purposes of the park and then introduce an ordinance for purposes of renovating the park, but not adopt the actual plan?
Well, first, your mayor, before the council can move ahead with the procurement to follow through on those improvements, yes, the funding would need to be in place. So the first steps are on the agenda tonight, which were, prepared by the CFO and by bond counsel, which is to get the funding in place, and that'll require the September 14th meeting for the bond to be adopted. So there's no formal need for action to be taken tonight on the engineering plans themselves, but if the council wishes to make its position known, it certainly can do so.
I mean, I just think it's more logical to actually have the governing body approve a plan before we're going out and trying to get financing approved.
It's to your point, Mayor, it's perfectly fine if the council wants to make a motion on the plans that were introduced and presented tonight.
Okay, so it's my recommendation to the council that you do that. Michael's saying you don't have to. So I kind of want to know if we're on board with this plan or not before we go down the pathway of trying to get financing. So is there anyone on council who wants to make a motion to approve the plans as presented by Colliers Engineering, subject to the comments and further refinement that we heard tonight, perhaps a final vote in the future and the approval?
Okay, yes.
Is that so moved?
Yeah, I would like to hear more from the public. I know you put it on the town website. I think there was discussion about it, and the remarks should go to Laura. That will give us more time to hear from the public. It was very short notice today. At 5:15, it went email to the town, A lot of people are on vacation, give us a few more days to hear the public, their comment. I know they would like it. It's a great plan. And few more days, it's okay, Just I would like to hear more from the public.
So you want to have a special meeting in a few days?
No. The next meeting is September 14th, correct? When is the next meeting?
September 14th, correct.
Yeah, but that time we'll have enough feedback from the public and we can go ahead. We'll see what they want.
So, like I said, that's fine, Ms. Begets, but that would also be incorporated in what I asked in terms of a resolution, which would be to approve the plan as presented, subject to
Yes,
further
okay,
refinement.
yes, subject to, correct.
Yeah, subject to
Yeah.
further refinement and a final vote, perhaps?
Yeah, yes, that's fine.
Okay, so is that?
I think that we should follow the recommendation of the council tonight. I mean, this is how they laid it out for us. We should just proceed with how.
So, okay, but I'm just saying this, Tim, because in 2017, we put the horse in front of the cart. We actually approved the plan first. And Michael, I want you to think about the logic of this. We approved the plan and then we went and tried to approve financing for that plan. Here, you're approving financing for a plan that doesn't exist. And just as God made little green apples, someone in this town is going to take issue with that and bring a lawsuit. So Michael, is your position still what you said?
Yes, Mayor, I don't believe that there's formal governing body action that's required to approve any plans tonight. As I said, the agenda is simply taking the steps so that the financing is there. And then there would be ultimately at the next meeting, if the bond ordinance is adopted, there would be a $5 million authorization. And then the council could then take actions to appropriate within the terms of the bond, which namely would be these improvements. To your point, Mayor, there wouldn't be any legal issue with the council taking a vote to show its desire to move forward with the project, but again, it's not legally required.
That doesn't seem sensible. I leave it to the council. If anyone wants to make a motion to approve the plan subject to further refinement, please do so now, otherwise we'll move forward. Okay. Mr. Collins and Mr. Mensch, who he works with, have been wrong many times before. I hope that's not the case tonight.
Mayor, I'm not. I not going to engage in a back and forth, but the
No,
agenda is
okay.
clear, and I
No,
think
no,
the action.
you're dying on, no, this is the hill you want to die on. That's okay. Okay.
There's
So
no
can I
hill,
have a
there's no hill to
motion?
die on, Mayor. This
Please.
is very clear on what the council's doing.
Yeah, you don't have the floor. Resolution 22-197, resolution amending the 2022 capital budget. Can I have a motion for that?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay, can I have discussion? Any discussion? Okay, can I have a roll call?
Member Di Gregorio,
Yes.
Member Luciano is absent, Member Park,
Yes.
Member Begats,
Yes.
Member Kapsaskis,
Yes.
Council President Katurbis.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. By the way, do we have an excuse for Mr. Luciano not being present tonight?
I don't have any, Mayor.
Just a no-show? Okay.
He just said he wouldn't be here tentatively. He would be here tentatively.
Yeah.
Okay, but he's
That's the
not.
response.
Okay, next up is the introduction of ordinance,
You have the 198, Mayor.
public hearing, September 14th, 2022.
Mayor, we missed one, 198, 22-198.
Okay, I don't have that one in the agenda I'm looking at. Can you go a bit?
Yes, it's the approval of emergency appropriation.
Okay, I didn't have that in my agenda. When did that come in?
About 313 or 319.
Okay, and what's the emergency?
Let me just check my resolutions. This has to be approved before we do the ordinance.
Okay, can I have a motion for that?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Have a discussion? No discussion, can I have a roll call?
Member Di Gregorio,
Yes.
Member Park,
Yes.
Member Begats,
Yes.
Member Kapsaskis,
Yes.
Council President Katurbis.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, introduction of ordinance with the public hearing on September 14th, 2022. This is a bond ordinance to authorize the undertaking of various recreation improvements in, by, and for the borough of Englewood Cliffs in the county of Bergen, New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $5 million to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. Can I have a motion to introduce this?
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, can I have a roll call?
Member Di Gregorio,
Yes.
Member Luciano is absent, sorry. Member Park,
Yes.
Member Begats,
Yes.
Member Kapsaskis,
Yes.
Council President Katurbis.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of summer, and we'll see you at our next meeting.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, everybody, thanks,
Thank
man.
you.
Night, everyone.